Aesha. How are you?
Good. So we met during our PhD journeys,
Yes.
and I think your PhD research is really fabulous. It's
Mm,
really helpful for a lot of educators,
yeah.
and I find it very insightful. Mm. So your research revolved around how to make physics better for females and female identifying students.
So it was mainly about if we see, let's say, gaps, performance gaps in our assessments, what we
Mm.
can do at assessment level. So it
Okay.
was not about like, what are the social factors can affect, what is like your home environment can affect. So what would
Mm.
be like, the female's role model in physics.
Hmm.
So I was not
Yeah.
looking at all these factors, but yes, in
Mm.
literature, we see that all these factors are related to each other and somehow affect females, their interest in physics, and how they want to pursue, later in a STEM career.
Mm.
But I was very specifically looking at assessment level, like
Yeah.
what we can
So,
do. So one of the things that I looked at is how you mark your, assessment. It could be, negative marking or positive marking. So that was very interesting. And interestingly, I collaborated with one of the Indians, where they give the physics Olympiad exams and all those stuff.
mm-hmm.
So I collaborated with that organization in India. So that was a very good experience. And yeah,
That
so
must be TIFR, right?
uh,
HBCSC?
yeah, so
Yeah.
that must be, that group. And
Mm.
yeah, that was the first paper when I started my PhD. So that was the
Mm.
first thing I did. And it was quite good because I know like we in our Asian countries, we are very, very competitive. The exams are very competitive. And then
Mm.
everybody in a race, like, okay, you have to go into this institution, or you want to go in medical or engineering. So you have to work really, really hard.
Mm.
And yeah, one of the things that was interesting is that when you apply negative marking in your exams, it disadvantages females more than boys.
Mm.
So if your females are already less in STEM
Mm.
education or STEM subjects, and then you are putting a pressure with negative marking, so they are not going to be selected at the later stages of your exam. If it is, exam has a several stages.
Mm.
So, I mean,
What
let's say
is
if you a
what is
hundred
the
females.
reason for that? Is there
So,
any psychological issues with women regarding
yeah,
the negative
yes.
marking?
One of the things, like, let's say because females are less risk taking. So
Okay.
guys take
Mm.
risk, females take
Mm.
less risk. Yeah. So that's the
Mm.
nature of the females. We don't want to take risk. Like, let's say if I'm taking an exam and I
Mm.
know I'm like, even I'm 70-30% sure, like, okay, this answer is good, but I will still not, choose
Mm.
that answer because I know I will lose 1 mark.
So
Yeah.
the psychology of women, like
Yeah.
the social structure or how we train women, they are less
Yeah.
of a risk taker.
Yeah.
So,
So one of the things that we can do is that, we teach kids or,
mm.
our teenagers and all, everybody how to take the test, because that's very important, how to attempt a test. It's like a whole training that we should be giving to our kids before they attempt, or if they go into a competitive setup. So that's one of the things that, train them. And then so training their risk taking behavior, and then negative marking, that was all the factors that I looked at in my thesis, one of the chapters in my thesis. So yeah, another thing that I look at, like how the format of your questions, how you format them. Let's say we are using multiple choice questions quite a lot these days, and but you don't know if a student choose a question or a option for right reason or for wrong reason.
Mm.
So you have to understand their misconceptions they have if they choose a wrong answer. Right answer, let's say B is the right answer, and student is choosing C and A, then you would say like the student is struggling with C and A, And then you say, oh, why that student is still choosing that option? Because he still thinks B is correct, but he still have misunderstanding or misconceptions related to those questions. So that's another way, how you format your questions. So let's say we do, in our formative assessments, we use quite a lot multiple choice questions, but in summative we have, open-ended questions where you write one question and then students have to elaborate their whole concept and then they come up to an answer. So that's another way, that we use in our summative assessments. That's a good way, but because it takes time to check those questions, but then we tend to use the multiple choice questions as well. So then you have to look at, the ratio, how many multiple choice questions you want to give in your summative assessment and how many you want to do in open-ended questions. So yeah, that's another thing that I looked at. It was the format of the question. Another one that I looked at in my thesis is that the language, what language you use when you write a question. So that was the one paper that you were talking about earlier, that yes, that just isn't a scientific for females. Yes. The reason was it's like an ambiguity. Like if you put a little ambiguity in your correct answer, female put more attention there because they say, yeah, because that word just is not scientific. So why you put in the, correct answer? And the interesting thing was they were choosing the right answer. They were not choosing the right answer and then choosing to the very close to the right answer, which was incorrect answer, just because they have seen the word just in that. So whereas we asked the males and we did the interview, they said, oh, yeah, because where's the word just? They didn't put any attention on the word just. Whereas women said, no. That can't be correct because the word just is there.
So just to give viewers a little context, for example, there is this question of what would the velocity be of the ball? And there are 4 answers, and one of them has the right answer, but the answer is framed like the velocity will be just about, let's say, 50 meters per second. So the females read this sentence and they get confused when you say just about or things like that.
Yeah. So that's another thing, how you write your questions. So write in a way that is, that is not biased for one gender over the other.
Yeah.
So,
but for first to know that this is going to create the bias, we need to do such studies, and there are reasons like women's
even you can discuss these things in your class, even you can do little experiments in your class, or you can ask at the same time. You don't have to be very well, like a formal or any exam setup. So you can do those sort of stuff because that's what we did in interview. We brought the question in the class. We asked what happened, and then they come up with this explanation. So so that's the way, what you can do in your class as a teacher, as an educator, or as a test writer, what you can do to understand better, okay, this is the female way of thinking, this is the male way of thinking.
And
so,
if you remove such ambiguity, like if you remove unnecessary words, because women have more comprehensive skills, they make most out of whatever they read. So if you take that out, do the male scores decrease?
No, what happened, we removed that one, the word just, female score increased, and the male was still the stable one. So it means that didn't affect male thinking, the way they comprehend the things, but it affected the females one. So that was a little experiment that we did. And another one that we can do is that, little activities at your classroom level. If students are struggling with one concept, just like I did, with forces, and if you throw something, let's say a ball, then you can ask, what is the path that a ball takes? That's a one-dimensional projectile motion question or two-dimensional projectile motion question. So these sort of things you can do at a classroom level. And then you can understand, okay, this is my class, this is how they think, this is how I, train them. And then you make your assessment. And then you know that this is all these factors can affect one gender over the other. So then how you can minimize these effects. So yeah, that was my thesis in PhD, so which was quite interesting. So I enjoyed quite a lot, like, while writing, while doing all those stuff. No doubt it was a bit hard journey because everything is not like, better frozen.
Mm.
So yeah, but it was quite interesting.
Yeah, so now the question is, what made you choose this topic? Like,
Oh,
it has to have a connect with you, right?
well, it was all of the sudden. I would say that I didn't make this choice consciously, but it just,
Yeah.
something fell in your lap. So it
Okay.
was for me that
So what
I
was
want.
your background, or what did you do your bachelor's in and master's in?
So actually, the reason I did PhD, it was my passion. So I
Okay.
didn't do my PhD without a passion. So
Okay.
when I was in my high school, I want to create something. I
Mm.
want to do something different so that, like, as you see, like, okay, this person invented this thing. Okay, this is this person. And I was very much driven by these thoughts and that, okay, I want to do something in my life that would contribute in our, everyday
Mm.
life or something.
Mm.
So that was my passion. So I wasn't interested in sciences at all. I wasn't at the beginning, to
Mm.
be very honest. But
Mm.
my main interest was mathematics.
Okay.
And mathematics was my, from grade 4. I love
Mm.
doing mathematics. So I want to pursue. By the time I was in my high school, I decided to go in statistics
Okay.
because from statistics, I thought like, oh yes, I can do statistics. So my background was statistics. I did
Mm.
my from first year college until my, master's. I had major subject in statistics. So I did my master's in applied statistics. So I did from Malaysia, so University Technology Petronas. That was applied statistics in geosciences. So again, geosciences
Okay.
wasn't my background. I have to learn geosciences
Mhm.
to do my master's. And then because I had learned a bit of more physics and all those stuff, and
Mm.
then I thought like, okay, I mean, when I read the papers and everything, I said, yeah, I can do this one because there's a maths education as well, not the physics education only.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's maths education as well. So I
Mm.
thought like this would be very similar to maths education stuff. So that's
Okay.
how I came into physics education. Yeah, but I
So,
still want to pursue, do a postdoc or something in maths education. Yeah.
oh, that would be great.
Yeah. So that's what I'm
So,
thinking, but I don't know what I can do.
so let's talk about your master's experience. How was it like?
That was the first time I left my country.
Ah.
So that was, I always wanted to go overseas from the age
Mm.
of 11.
Mm.
So that's, I was, I know in my head what I want to do. So when
Mm.
I was in my high school, I went to my dad one day and said, I want to go to a different city. I don't want to stay in
Mm.
my city. He said, no, 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 Mary, you're too small now. It's good like you study in your own city. So, okay, that's fine. And then when I finished my college and said, okay, now I finished college. Now I want to go to another city. They again said the same thing. Okay, I finished my undergraduate and I start applying for scholarships.
Mm.
So I said to my mom that, okay, I have done undergraduate. I'm, old enough to handle myself. So then I got an opportunity in Malaysia. So I
Okay.
went there. Initially, it was quite a different experience. I thought I would do something in statistics, but not with geosciences. But
Mm.
because that university was mainly for oil and gas, so you have to do your research in oil and gas.
Okay.
So it took roughly 4 or 5 months to me to understand, even to find the topic in which I want to do research.
Mm.
So I found a topic and I was quite motivated to, do that project. And because that was my, my own topic that I developed in
Mhm.
that area. And nobody
Okay.
has done, masters or even PhD. Maybe they have done PhD, not at the master's level to see how the things go, like in oil and gas.
Mm.
Um, But I mean, that was a very tragic story in my master's, that after 1 year, my supervisor got retired,
Okay.
and I couldn't finish that project. And I
Oh,
have done nearly 80% of my project at that time.
so master's is generally 2 years degree, right?
Yeah.
So
So after 1 year, yeah, yeah. So
you
after one
started
year,
in your first year.
yeah. So in my
Oh.
first year, I had the confidence that okay, I can finish within 1.5 years, because
Hmm.
I know that I mean, the statistics part I knew, but the
Hmm.
geosciences part I have to learn. So that's fine,
So can
because
you explain the project a little bit, the topic
it would
and the instruments involved, or
yeah. So
was it
basically, it was
experimental?
related to seismic waves. So seismic waves, I have to look at, shear waves and polarized waves, and how they can split when they go inside a mineral,
Hmm.
and what would be the statistical modeling if they split, and can we find any reservoir at that
Hmm.
point, and what would be their, parameters. So I used mostly the geosciences softwares at that time and MATLAB. Um, but then I have to go to geoscience department, day in and day out, and to sit with the postdocs and then just learn from them. And all
Hmm.
they have for lunchtime for me, because they didn't have, these are the postdoc students, so
Hmm.
they don't have time for, a master student.
Hmm.
So, but there was one Indonesian guy. He helped me quite a lot. I mean, I would never forget that guy. Yeah. So that was my master's, was about seismic waves. Um, yeah, so after 1 year, when I was doing my master's, so I had defined my project and everything, but then I didn't pursue it, because
Hmm.
my secondary supervisor became my primary supervisor, and my primary was retired. So secondary has, I mean, the objectives and the goals were same, but then the topic, it shifted a little bit. But then
Okay.
it took again a little while for me to, hold on to that project, and to understand and to write a thesis. And I still remember it was Christmas time,
Hmm.
uh, and around midnight, I had an idea, and
Hmm.
I wrote it down, and I did my whole calculations again. And next, after I think 1 or 2 days, when the Christmas was over, I went to my supervisor and said, okay, I know the projects, I have done everything, and this is what it is now. He said, yes, Umairia, now you understand your project very well. So within that, I think 3 or 4 months, I finished my master's, and
Oh.
it took 1.5 year total. I graduated until I graduated. So yeah, so it took a little bit longer time than what I was expecting. But
Hmm.
yeah, it helped me quite a lot to understand, how the hostel life is, how you should be, I made very good friends over there, and I'm still in touch with one of my very close friend, and she's doing PhD in US now. So yeah, so that's how you meet people. And actually, that's a journey, it's your whole journey of hard work. And over there, I was doing, and then I know, okay, I have done my master's. I want to do PhD.
Hmm.
And while I was in Malaysia, I got admission in UNSW Canberra.
Okay.
So I went back home, and I said, okay, I had applied for scholarship, and then I waited for it. And then within a night, you would say, I got my visa. So which is quite surprising for most of the students. I came here in Australia and did my PhD.
How was your overall experience of being in Canberra and of
Ah,
Australia?
I think I love Canberra. If somebody asked me to move to any other city in Australia, I would
Hmm.
say no, because Canberra is very, very peaceful. And today we had the open day, so I'm still wearing, UNSW t-shirt. So yeah, we did some volunteer work today.
That's good. Um, so you said you used to love math as a kid,
Yeah.
uh, but did you have any other hobbies?
Uh, my other hobby, there were the two main hobbies that I could say that this is throughout my childhood. One is book reading, other is walk. So these two are my hobbies, and we used to play badminton quite a lot in our home
Okay.
with my uncles. Yeah, so I mean, there are so much stuff, like back home, you get to know other things, and then you get sometimes you have this hobby, sometimes you don't have this hobby. But one
Yeah.
thing I would say, I was never good in painting.
Okay.
But I had interest, looking at watching documentaries, history, these sort of
Mhm.
stuff. That was my interest. Yeah.
Okay. So one piece of advice that you would like to give to students with like wide set of interest, not only STEM, but whatever.
Yeah, I think what one advice I would give. It's interesting.
for, for
But I would
building a
say that,
career,
yeah,
like you have come so far in your
yeah.
like research journey. So, for them to, especially for girls, what do you think
What
is
I
the
would say is that, first of all, there should be a protective environment for females.
Mhm.
Because sometimes if there's other factors that are affecting their mental well-being,
Mm.
then that kid cannot think straight. Your
Yeah,
home
yeah,
environment should be positive, and it should be encouraging, kids
yeah.
to explore many things,
Mm.
and give them a little bit open hand, don't impose your own likes and dislikes on kids. Like, they
Mm.
should follow their own passion. So
Mm.
what I would say is that follow your passion. If you really want to pursue something, you would find a way. It's
Mm.
like you won't think that it's a lot of hard work, but at the end of the day, you would say, like, yes, I have achieved something in my life. So especially for girls, even my own niece, I have 4 or 5 niece, and
Mhm.
all I say to them that, if they're good in studies, if they're good in particular one subject, you should let them to explore more.
Mm.
And let's say a kid says to me, I mean, my niece says, like, I really likes to go into biology. Like, that's what is her strengths are. So I won't recommend that kid, go into mathematics. That student won't be a good in mathematics. So, but her interest
Mm.
is in, biology. She wants to do. Then that kid will start thinking about, what they want to do after, college. They would have
Yeah.
something straight in their head. It's not like, I want to do this thing, I want to do that thing, and then their brain is all over the place. So what I would suggest is that, follow your passion. If you are good in something, that's very natural for you. You don't have to push yourself to, to
Mm.
find your interest in something else that you don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I would like to say.
Thank you so much, Umaria. This was a really insightful interview. I'm sure viewers will learn a lot about physics education research and education research in general, and how the things create gender bias, which we can eliminate now because we have more women representation. And some countries are much ahead than others,
Yeah.
but the countries who cannot afford the research as of now, they can get. I, I'm sure that they will get to know a lot more about this field through the interview, and they'll be able to implement it in their school.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.